Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 110. Andrew Eisen here, along with Zachary Knight. He's back.
Hello, I'm back. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's taken 5 or 6 years, but I have finally played the Project Rainfall games, which, for those of you not in the know, back when the Wii was dead, and before the Wii U was alive, if you can ever, if there was any point in time you could have referred to that system as kicking. But the last year and a half or so of the Wii's life was, from the North American perspective at least, pretty drought-like. We had Skyward Sword coming out in the fall of 2011 or 12 or something like that, and I think 2011, and that was like it. I think there was a Kirby game. And so a lot of people are like, your next console isn't out yet and we have no games, Nintendo. But we looked over the pond and Europe had a bunch of games in English. And some of them looked really cool. And we were like, well, can we have those? Nintendo's like, no. It's like, if you wouldn't region lock your console, we could just import the games and play them. Nintendo's like, yeah, but I've got two fingers for you, one on each hand. Guess which one it is? It's the big ones.
Yeah.
And so a fan campaign started to bring 3 specific games over to North America. Not localize them, mind you, because they were already localized into English. I mean, they still needed ESRB ratings. They still would have had to print copies of the games and package them and ship them over and get new cover art with the ESRB rating on them. So it's not like it would have been completely free, but not as expensive as localizing from scratch a Japanese game,
Yeah.
These 3 games were Xenoblade Chronicles, big sprawling action RPG, The Last Story, a more linear action RPG, and Pandora's Tower, not even sure how to describe it. It's a kind of a combination between like maybe Castlevania and Zelda. It's kind of a weird game. You have a base of operations and you go out into the main castle, of which there are 13 towers, and there's a boss monster in each of the towers. Every tower you go to, you learn a new mechanic of the game. So your weapon is kind of like a whip. It's a chain, but it's essentially Simon Belmont's whip. You can grab enemies and yank their bits off, which are sometimes consumables, sometimes monies, sometimes equipable defensive items. You can use your chain to latch onto the environment, swing around, pull switches, do all kinds of neat stuff. It's a game. All 3 games actually came to North America over the course of about a year.
Yeah.
I bought all 3 games, just like I said I would in a video talking about these titles. And I just finally got around to playing the last of the 3. I'd played Xenoblade Chronicles years ago, quite liked it. Played Last Story years ago, and very much like that one. I actually like Last Story better than Xenoblade Chronicles, though I do like them both. And I just started last week Pandora's Tower, and I'm happy to say it's quite good. I've beaten 5 of the 13 towers, so if that's a good way to chop up the game, that's how far I am, 5/13 of the way through. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's the premise of the game is your girlfriend. I have no idea what your relationship is to this woman. They're kind of revealing the backstory as you go. I'm like, is she my sister or just a girl I know? Or are we childhood friends? Are we lovers? What's the relationship between us? And why does my character have only a couple of voiced lines? Did the actor die? What happened here? I mean, it's kind of weird. But the idea is she is turning into a slimy purple slug monster, and she doesn't like that. And the way to prevent her from turning into a slimy purple slug monster is to venture into the towers, yank bits of flesh off the monsters within, go home and feed them to her. And she's a vegetarian. So you have to force feed a vegetarian slimy monster meat so that she doesn't turn into a purple slimy tentacle monster. And she has to choke this stuff down every time you visit her. It's pretty gnarly, in both senses of the word. I'm really enjoying the game so far. So I'm happy to say that Project Rainfall was a worthy campaign.
Yeah.
Advocating for the bringing locally 3 genuinely fun games. I mean, it wasn't like, two dorks crying out for the nichest of niche games that, oh, I want this game that no one's ever heard of and no one will ever want to play because I want it. No, these are genuinely really good games, and I don't
Yeah.
think I mean, they're genre specific. They are RPGs. They're certainly not 4-quadrant titles, but I think they are generally appealing. They're not like something super specific like what's that demo? Gosh, what's the name of the game? The one where you set traps for people that are wandering into the castle. That one's pretty niche.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Zelda. You go, you get a thing, you bring it back to do stuff. It's
well, and Xenoblade Chronicles was a pretty massive success for Nintendo, which required Nintendo to re-release it on the 3DS and make a sequel to it. So, it was a very worthwhile endeavor for Nintendo, and it's insane that it took them so long, that they drugged their feet so long to bring them over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had smart people with economics degrees who were looking at, okay, it will cost us X dollars to get an ESRB rating and print up some new copies and ship them over to North America and put them in stores and all that. That's going to cost X dollars. How many do we expect to actually sell on the Wii, which is a pretty much dead console? The amount of money we'd make actually selling that looks like it's going to be less than X. So no. I get that rationale, but that seems kind of hard to believe that you wouldn't have sold enough to cover the cost of just ESRB rating and ship them on, print up new copies and ship them over to America. Because comparatively, that's a minimal cost.
Yeah.
Pandora's Tower, I'm only 5/13 of the way through, but I'm really quite enjoying it so far.
Well, that's good. Yeah, my favorite Project Rainfall story was this one day. Reggie Fils-Aimé was going to do a Twitter, like he was going to be on Twitter and tweeting all day long, and supposedly he was going to be interacting with the Twitter community. It turned out all he did was post 6 tweets, 2 of which were pretty much the exact same thing, just slightly worded different.
Oh, right, the Ask Reggie or whatever thing they were doing. I don't even think that was Reggie. I think it was an intern.
No, but the thing is that entire event was just taken over completely by Project Rainfall. It's like every single response, every single tweet with that hashtag, the Ask Reggie or whatever it was, when are you bringing the Project Rainfall games over? Why haven't you brought the Project Rainfall games over yet? And it was hilarious.
And it's like, look, I don't think that was an unreasonable request, because the Wii U was still more than a year out, and there was just no games. We had nothing to play. And it's like, but you do have games. They're over there. They're in English. Yeah, it's not like we're asking you to spend a ton of money localizing new Japanese games for English audiences. We're not asking you to redub the the European cast that did the dub for Last Story and Pandora's Tower, and for the 3 games. I mean, because everyone in these games speaks with heavy English accents, which is fine, because though they're English accents, it's still English.
And Addicted to Chaos says that that the choice to not bring those games over was all Nintendo of America.
If you're interested in that distinction, yes, this was an NOA thing.
Yeah, Nintendo Japan and Europe had nothing to do with the decision, and eventually, I would love to know what the what finally spurred the internal decision to bring the games to the US, whether it was Nintendo of Japan going to Reggie and saying, you need to get onto this, or what. But
I imagine it was just the realization that there seemed to be enough people willing to buy these games to cover the cost of bringing them over. So it's like, how many of these do we need to sell to cover the cost of bringing them over? Like 100 copies, or whatever it is, 1,000, 10,000 copies of, but between all 3 games. And with the entire brouhaha, they're like, you know what? I think we might actually be able to sell more than 10,000 copies to cover the cost of bringing them over. And that's why they did. I think, but also Nintendo's a wealthy company. They could have, I mean, even if it was a money loser, they could have, just eaten the cost just to keep Nintendo fans happy. It's like, look, the Wii died an early death. Our next console is still more than a year out, but we're going to, here are some big RPGs to help you while away the time. We're losing money bringing these to you, but we love you. Even though we're a big business that only cares about money, we still want to appear to care about you. So. Oh, someone's getting banned.
Yeah.
Bye. Oh, should I add you as a moderator? Wait a minute. Report, remove, I guess. Yeah. Bye-bye. So yeah, so Rainfall games were good.
Yeah.
Nintendo actually only brought over Xenoblade. Last Story and Pandora's Tower were brought over by Xseed. Correct. Xseed. Yeah, right there. Xseed published Pandora's Tower and Last Story in North America, and Nintendo published Xenoblade. And it's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nintendo's. Nintendo's like, I wonder if there's anyone in Nintendo who's like looking at Xenoblade Chronicles X and then Xenoblade 2 and the forthcoming DLC, and they're like, I called it. I knew it'd be a hit. It's like,
of course, if somebody is there, thinking that they are the smart one. But yeah, and it just goes to show you that companies they really need to pay more attention to fans. And I'm not saying you don't game companies shouldn't just take everything that fans have to say at face value, because fans can be completely stupid and selfish and and everything. But there's sometimes when it's very well worth it, and especially if it's a decision to bring a game locally or to a specific platform that you weren't originally bringing it out, or to actually put all 3 games on that disc. Activision,
Spyro.
Yeah, Spyro. Yeah, did you hear that Activision had to delay Spyro till November?
No.
They had a September release, but it's now delayed till November. So, for love and care or something like that is what they were saying. It needed more love and care. So, but yeah, I thought that was funny. But yeah, we just
One thing I would like to say about the whole Project Rainfall thing is this was a massive grassroots fan campaign. It happened in 2011, I think,
Yeah.
and it was polite. It was civil.
Yeah, it
No one
was.
harassed anyone. I'm sure there were examples of someone being a jackass somewhere, but the Project Rainfall campaign is characterized as just a love for games and
Yeah.
a pleading to Nintendo, we love you, we love games, please let us give you our money. No one harassed anyone, so far as I know. I don't think there were any death threats. I don't recall there being a ton of people being completely mean to anybody. It was just, we want to play games, bring us some games and we'll give you some money for them games. How's that sound?
Yeah.
So, I have to wonder if Project Rainfall happened today or any time within the last 5 years, if it would have been a different story. I hope not.
Yeah.
But, gamers can ask nicely, at least. So that's
Can and it's great. I'm glad to see it, and I just wish Nintendo would have learned their lesson to not make stupid decisions. But they're
well, they
still,
did stop region locking their consoles, so that's something.
well, yeah, that's something.
Yeah, Leaf
But they
Fest.
still
Any Switch games I'm thinking of picking up for the rest of 2018. He's getting Dark Souls, Mario Party, and Smash Ultimate. Um, um, if the full edition of Mario plus Rabbids comes out, I'll get that for a decent price. Yeah, that I'm waiting for the gold edition of Mario plus Rabbids. So Mario plus Rabbids base game plus DLC for a reasonable price. I'm still waiting for Octopath Traveler. I'd like not paying $60 for it. I'll wait for that to drop. Other than that,
Hmm.
nope. Not that I can think of. I mean, looking long term, almost certainly Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4, whatever those games turn out to be. I mean, unless we see them and they are like, oh, that looks terrible. I'm interested in the Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes 3, whatever they end up calling it,
Yeah.
because I'm a fan of No More Heroes. What I've seen of the game hasn't been particularly exciting, but I'm a fan of the franchise, so I've at least got my eye on it. Um, I
Yeah.
don't know. It'll be interesting to see what that Yoshi game. I don't know if they're totally reworking that game or what, but it looked cute when we
That
saw it a year ago.
off the radar. I think they probably just had to really they probably hit some kind of thing design block that just said, this is not working, and so now they're trying to figure something else out.
Well, aesthetically, I think it works. Maybe gameplay wise, they're like, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's really visually interesting. It's just not that fun to play.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Uh,
They can
yeah,
find.
I also, based on something Leaf just said, I want to be clear that it's not that I don't think Octopath Traveler is worth full price. It's just that I don't pay full price, regardless of what I feel the game is worth. I'm not paying $60 for a video game, period. So
I think if
50, I'll go 50. That's as high as I go.
if I got a Switch this year, I would probably end up getting um I'd probably end up getting Splatoon and Octopath Traveler, of course. Let's see here. Not maybe Mario Party. I know my wife likes Mario Party, and it would be fun to play with the kids. And definitely, I would probably get Pokemon Let's Go. Um,
Both
I,
of them.
I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to get both of them, even though there are exclusive Pokemon. But I'd probably just get Eevee because I'm kind of burnt out on Pikachu.
Yeah, Pikachu is so ubiquitous.
Yeah,
If I were, I'm not a Pokemon guy, but if I were, I'd probably go with Eevee just because
yeah,
we've had plenty. I could probably go outside and spit and hit a Pikachu.
yeah.
I don't know what that even means.
But
Um,
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
also probably get Smash Brothers because my kids like playing. We've got the Wii one, which is what Brawl, I think. Yeah,
Yes.
because
Yes.
GameCube is Melee. Yeah,
Yes.
we've got Brawl, and my kids like playing it, and so the what is it? What is it called? Smash.
Ultimate. Smash
Uh,
Brothers Ultimate. The
yeah,
game that has canonically killed both Mario and Luigi.
and Mega Man.
And
But
Mega
yeah,
Man, and someone else was on that. Ridley, I think Ridley's got 3, and Death killed Luigi.
yeah, but yeah. So I think my kids would love it, and I would definitely love it because it's got King K. Rool and Ridley, and
Um, I went back and I looked at an old video I did prior to when the Wii, or I don't know, the Wii U version came out, and I think everything I predicted has actually, except some of the really obscure costuming possibilities, I think pretty much everything I've predicted has come to pass in Smash Brothers by now, except Earthworm Jim. Um,
yeah, there's actually a
I mean, I did say Devil Joe, but Rathalos is in it now, so it's pretty close.
you
But
got some.
I will say, since Simon Belmont is now in there, and that was one of the ones that I was asking for. We've got Simon Belmont,
Yeah.
um, and Link and Zelda, and Mega Man and Pit. I'm thinking, well, now you have to have Captain N in there, right?
Actually, somebody was a indie gamer girl or something. Let me look this up. Um, so there's actually a Twitter campaign going on, or somebody is putting this on. Yeah, indie gamer chick. Okay, she has actually looked into this. She runs the indie gamer team website. She used to do a whole bunch of reviews for indie games like the Xbox X and A games and everything. But she's actually starting a campaign to get Popeye into Smash. Um,
Well, well, that was a Nintendo arcade
yeah,
game.
exactly. That's her justification in it. She said she was originally going to do the campaign for Captain N, but then she spoke with someone who was in the know, and there's actually a contract between all the companies that own the various character IPs
Hmm.
that nobody none of those companies are allowed to use Captain N, that princess, and their dog thing in any video games ever in perpetuity unless all signatories agree to the game appearance.
Great.
And
Signatories, stop being jerks and agree. Have some fun, for crying out loud.
and she says that the idea behind that contract was that the what was to not promote any individual company over the rest of them, and so that's why the kid's name is Captain N instead of the original concept of being Captain Nintendo. But yeah, so she changed her mind and decided to go with Popeye because that's one of Nintendo's original hit arcade games, which Donkey Kong is based off of. So
All right.
yeah,
Well,
so
again, Leaf saying something in the comments, which I'm going to play off of, and that's I really think Smash Brothers could use a few more sword wielding characters from Fire Emblem.
oh yeah, definitely.
A few more
Uh,
sword dudes. That's what we need.
I'm still holding out for an actual Geno included. The stupid Geno Me costume was dumb, and I hate it. And I actually want Geno in the game. But,
A love for Mallow.
well, Mallow is a punk. I hate him.
Okay.
It's just Princess Toadstool was a much better healer, and she could actually deal damage. So Mallow was crap.
You're out of the party, Mallow.
uh,
I'm surprised that we haven't seen like a rabbit or something like that in the game.
Yeah. Well, see, I could see a rabbit being like an assist trophy
Wow.
thing,
Yeah.
but or, or just have this very rare and random chance of a rabbit popping out of a Pokeball. That would just be totally weird and annoying.
Scotty says Doomslayer for Smash. I always knew him. Is Doomslayer a recent thing? Because I always knew him as Doom
Doom
Guy.
guy, yeah. Yeah, Doom guy.
Leaf suggests Rabid Peach. That's probably from what I've seen of the game. That's probably the funniest character. So,
Yeah.
let's see. Have I tried the Monster Hunter demo on Switch? Monster Hunter. What's the name of it? 4 Ultimate or whatever they're calling it. I heard it came out. No, I've not yet. I probably will at some point though, because I like Monster Hunter, and I haven't played World for a while, and I know Behemoth came out a couple weeks ago, and Teostra's sister, Leostra, I think is what it is. I'm like, it looks like it's just a color swap of Teostra. It's like, oh, it's ice instead of fire. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I was really ill impressed with that announcement. But Kura Lava, whatever, is a multiplayer monster. I tried to do a Leslie and Bob video for it by soloing it, and it was just a boring video because I was hammering on this thing's butt for literally its gold-plated tail. I hammered on its butt for like 20 solid minutes, and it never noticed. And I was, doing that major overhead slam attack, that one that you build up.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but I don't think she ever noticed I was there, and it was a really boring video because I just ran. Eventually, she just walked away. It was quest failed. I'm like, well, I probably, since I'm one person instead of a full crew of 16 people, which is what you're supposed to do, I'd probably have to play it several times to stack up the damage to get that boss fight to move on to the next phase.
Mm-hmm.
But the video was just boring because I spent 20 minutes hammering on this thing's butt. I mean, it's the story is kind of funny. Actually watching it's not very funny.
Yeah.
So Leaf, I was thinking of that too. The Minecraft Steve and I don't know what
Alex is the female one. Yeah.
Okay, Alex and Steve.
Yeah,
sure.
and that could just be Steve with Alex being a alternate costume because they're the exact same character. Just
I tend to think of Smash Brothers characters as characters that exemplify Nintendo and the history thereof, not so much gaming and the history thereof.
Which also
like
which
why
makes
I don't
Cloud completely stupid to ever be included.
Yeah, even though Final Fantasy games have been on Nintendo system, it's not what you think of when you think of.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, I would be okay with someone like Earthworm Jim. Because I associate, even though he was on the Genesis, I associate that with the Super Nintendo because that's where I played it. But I mean, I don't have a problem with. I mean, if you want to put Master Chief in Smash Brothers, go for it. I don't care. It's fine. There's 80 some characters, so a couple of them I think are wasted space. All deal. I can't find it within me to get upset over an inclusion on a roster.
Yeah. I think, but I do think Duck Hunt Dog was probably my biggest surprise character inclusion on the Wii U.
That was pretty great.
That was great, and it's kind of interesting that canonically his name is now Duck Hunt. It's like the dog doesn't have his own name. Yeah.
I would have been totally fine if they would have just given him a name like Ralph or Becky or something like that. This is Becky the dog. Oh, okay, fine. But we just call him Duck Hunt. I'm like, no, come on.
Yeah.
Banjo from Banjo-Kazooie, that could be a lot of fun. Sure.
Yeah. Let's see who else.
Conquer, but there's a constant censoring Mosaic following him around.
Oh man, yeah, Conquer. Golly, who else is there?
I mean,
I'm sure
you're running
there's.
out of the majors. You're kind of you kind of got to go. You got to cut deep. It's like Boogerman for Smash.
Is there a Toad in Smash? I forget if if Toad is an
A
actual
Mushroom Kingdom Toad.
character.
Peach uses Toad as a shield.
Yeah,
At
does
least
she?
she does in one of the games. So she'll like
Oh,
pull a Toad out of her pocket and block with it. I don't know if she
interesting.
still does that, but she's done that before. But not as a individual fighter or assist trophy, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. Birdo would make another great fighter. Shoot eggs out of her snout or whatever it
Yep.
is. Um, just
I've
trying
got
to
a
think.
moth in here.
Yeah. I don't know. There's lots of interesting characters they could include, and just and really, they should just scrape that bottom of the barrel. Bubble and Bobble or whatever their names are, the little dinosaurs in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, include those in Smash. That would be fun.
Let's see. Trying to think of obscure but
Bike
still
guy.
Nintendo. Yeah, that's got to be an assist trophy
I
somewhere,
think it
right?
is. I think it is.
Isaac from Golden Sun. Sure, sure, sure.
Okay.
Um,
Something from golly, Advanced War. I don't know if
oh,
there's any specific characters
there
from
are
that.
characters in the Advanced Wars games, but I don't know 'em.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't know either. I'm just
fans of Advanced Wars would definitely know them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of characters. I just don't know what else to include. But
Sakurai's probably one of the 4 people watching this podcast, and he's like, "You want more? What more can I possibly give?"
we want your soul.
They start putting Nintendo employees in there, like Iwata and Reggie and
Yeah,
Miyamoto
Miyamoto. Yeah.
and Aonuma and Sakurai. And Iwata has the direct attack. Captain Rainbow. I am so sorry that Captain Rainbow never got localized because that looked fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Leaf. Nintendo should force Sakurai to take a vacation after this one.
They should include Error.
Oh, I am Error from
from Zelda 2. Yeah,
he doesn't even fight; he just mopes. Sits over in the corners like
I am Error.
Error.
Missing No from Pokemon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh God, what is it? Or something a bit more recognizable from Minecraft than Steve or
Alex
is the cactus penis monster, the creeper. Is that what it's called?
The creeper. Yeah.
Yeah, just have those. Probably not even as a fighter, but as a stage hazard or assist trophy. Just have that walking across. People would know what that is.
Yeah.
So, all right, let us move on to. I did a Twitter poll, but since I'm not very popular, not many people responded to it. But I've talked about this before. But when a video game publisher announces paid DLC for a game that isn't even out yet, like Doom Eternal isn't out until 2019, and Bethesda's already saying, "Oh, we're going to have single player DLC for you, boy, howdy, we will." But there's a bunch of stuff coming out this fall: Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Valkyrie Chronicles 4, Spider-Man. They all have long since announced paid DLC for their single player campaigns. The games are not out yet; they come out this fall. So my question on Twitter was, I personally, when a publisher announces paid DLC for a game that isn't even out yet, I'm less likely to buy the game at or near launch. So I put the question to my Twitter followers: how's about you? Well, I had 33 people respond. Actually, let me refresh the page, make sure it's still 33. I imagine it is. Yes, 33. So 33 people responded. 45%, 45 said, I'm less likely to buy it. 55 said, I really don't care. And this is the part I find the most interesting. 0%, 0 of 33 people said I'm more likely to buy a game if I know it has, if it's going to have DLC available. Now, of course, this is a completely insignificant sample size of people who follow me on Twitter. So you can't really extrapolate much, if anything, at all from this. But I did find it interesting that of 33 people who follow me, none of them are more like it's like, ooh, it's gonna have DLC. I'm really invested. No, the responses, and I had a few people respond in the comments and explain their reasoning, and most of it was, I don't care.
Yeah.
So publishers, if you can take anything from this, and you can't, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's no value to announcing DLC before your game is even out, because at best, no one cares.
Yeah.
At worst, they're like, oh, I'll just wait a while until the full version comes out for less money, which is what I do. You announce DLC before the game's even out, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll buy the Game of the Year edition next year for $20 less.
Yeah.
That's just how I does it. I mean, for example, I bought. I've actually purchased a few games recently for like $20, 15 to 20. I bought Horizon Zero Dawn, the complete edition, for $20. Sure, a year and a half later, but I got the game and all its DLC for $20. Same thing with the super special edition Game of the Year, complete edition of Rise of the Tomb Raider with all its DLC, $20. So now that's just me. That doesn't mean you're dumb if you don't do that. I just found it kind of interesting that of the people who responded, no one was like, yeah, you announced DLC. I know you care about the project and will keep supporting it. So I'm more likely to invest in it because I know it will continue to be supported. No one said that. Most people don't care. So
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be from really any value to doing that. I would think it would be more valuable to hide that and make it look like you said, oh, we worked really hard on a game, you liked it, and hey, we've made more content for you. $20, please. I think that's a better look than, we have all this content, we're selling you this much, and we'll sell you the other part later. We planned it that way because we can make more money off of you doing that.
Yeah, and sadly it's been this way forever. Yeah, for years. I guess since the launch of the PS3 and 360, where uh, console DLC was made pretty much viable, is that it's as gamers have been conditioned to kind of just expect this. That's why the vast majority of your respondents were just, they don't care because they
And a lot of the actual
and
comments I got were
yeah,
along the lines of, it's just the way it is. I don't really like it, but I'm used to it. I don't care. I'm just in it for the games. If it has more detail, more DLC later. One of Matthew's comments, I'm remembering, he says, you know what, most DLC I think is crap anyway, so if you announce DLC, I don't care because I'm not going to buy it. So
yeah. And I think that too, because and like you said, if they announce it in such a way that it feels like they're they've already developed stuff and they're just keeping it away from us to sell it to us later because they want to make extra money, that kind of rubs me raw there. But
yeah.
it's a
And that may not actually be the case,
yeah.
but it doesn't matter if that's the impression your consumers,
Well,
your
yeah.
audience gets.
Yeah, well, take a fighting game.
Mm.
Say, what if Nintendo came out tomorrow and said, all those extra fighters we've been announcing for the last 3 weeks,
Yeah,
they're
they're
all
sold separately.
DLC.
No,
That's going to
you
take a lot
have
of
to buy
people off.
their amiibos to unlock them.
Oh yes, that would be even worse. But that would tick a lot of people off, and I bet a lot of people would completely decide to skip Smash if that were the case. But because Soul Calibur did this, where it's like, oh, we've got this great new fighter, and he's exclusive to pre-ordering at Best Buy. I'm like, what?
Capcom had a game, I forget which one it is, but like half of its roster is DLC. And
Yeah,
I can't remember which game it was, but it was like, and it wasn't like a huge roster. I mean, it wasn't like
yeah,
40 characters on the disc and we'll have 40 more later. It was like
yeah.
12 and 12
Well,
or
and
something.
then there was Killer Instinct on the Xbox One, where they were like, yeah, you get one free fighter, and then you have to buy all the rest. And it's just like, but you only get to choose from these three fighters for the free one.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what?
Now, I'm eyeballing the chat here, and a couple are saying that DLC can work in certain cases, and I agree with that. And one of the examples I'm seeing is stuff like extra music for Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and I agree with that. If it has a nice, complete, robust list of songs in the first place, and then you
Yeah,
want to make a live service out of it, like which seems to be the new hotness. That makes sense. We're constantly licensing new music, and you can buy it for 99 cents a piece or whatever.
yeah,
That makes sense. You just pick the music you want and add it to the game. Great. Um, but they weren't happy with that. That's why they released a new game with new plastic instruments every year, and
yeah.
that's why there's no more Rock Hero or Guitar Band to shoot. Guitar Hero and Rock Band.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah, and DLC to me it should be should feel like an extra, or should
Yes.
feel like you know, it's either, you know, DLC should either be something that I don't have to have if I don't want it,
Hmm.
or it should be something just absolutely amazing that makes me want to buy it. And one of the ways is expansion packs, and I go back to this all the time. I love the idea of expansion packs where it's just, you know, you have a complete game, and then a couple of years later, or a year later, or whatever, you release a basically a new game using the same engine, whatever, and it's just an extra $20. You get an entire new campaign or new story mode to go along with this. You know, that is cool stuff to me.
I've
But
actually been really impressed with, though it was announced, both the examples I'm going to give were announced before the games came out. I was impressed with the DLC ultimately ended up being for both Mario plus Rabbids and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Um, both I've been really impressed with just the breadth of and uniqueness of the new content in both of these titles. They feel like true expansions, worthy additional content. So, hey, you like this? Here's some more stuff. Not, oh, we fixed stuff that was broken and now we want you to pay us for it. It's a kind of DLC, you know?
yeah, uh,
Yeah, I agree, Leaf. The extra characters in Smash 4 were overpriced. They were about $6 a piece, and I respect that the characters came with music and their own stage for the most part, but still, $6 for a single character? No, no,
yeah.
no, no. So,
Yeah. See, and I like what Skullgirls did, where they did their Indiegogo campaign to add like 5 new fighters to their game, something like that,
hmm.
and massively successful campaign. And it was
Oh, good for
basically
them.
what I said earlier, an expansion to the original Skullgirls game, and you know, and yeah, I think that is a great way to handle this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, gamers like to game. We like to spend money on dumb stuff. So, treat us with respect and love, and we will love you back with our monies.
yeah.
But I mean, you can treat us with disrespect and rip us off, but I would like to think that you'd be more successful not doing that. I mean, you can be successful doing that. We can see many examples, but I like to think in my idealistic, if not realistic, little mind that it would be better to do it my way. So, one more
Yeah.
thing I would like to talk about, switching topics, is are you familiar with the Hatchet movies?
The Hatchet movies?
Hmm.
I'm familiar with the book, The Hatchet.
No.
Little kid, the
Back in
gift and gets and ends up lost in the woods and has to
hmm.
survive for months on end.
So back in the early 2000s, a guy named Adam Green made a slasher movie called Hatchet. It's about a dude in the a ghost in the bayou that wanders around and hacks up anyone who wanders into his swamp. The ghost monsters Victor Crowley, played by Jason actor Kane Hodder, and it's a gory throwback to 80s slasher schlock, and it's a lot of fun. And they made a Hatchet 2, and they made a Hatchet 3, and they're all gory and they're all genuinely funny and a lot of fun to watch. Are they great movies? No, but they've got great the monster is cool and the set pieces are cool and the jokes actually land and the characters are funny and the deaths are gory and awesome. They're great. You sit on the couch, you pop popcorn. They're a blast to watch, all three of them. So a year ago, Adam Green was doing a 10-year um, screening for the original Hatchet, and invited a bunch of people. I think it was held up in LA or somewhere. And a bunch of people came to watch Hatchet on its 10-year anniversary. And he says, this means a lot to me, especially with the recent passing of George Romero and Wes Craven. And they taught me that you fans are the important part. So we're not going to watch Hatchet tonight. We're going to watch Hatchet 4. That's right. I made a fourth one and you didn't even know it. We kept this under wraps and you get to see it right now in the audience. Ah! And it's like, wow, that never happens anymore. Now, I'm old enough to remember when the first time I'd be aware of a movie coming is when I saw the trailer in the theater, or when I saw a poster for it at the theater, or when you saw commercials on TV. There was no internet back then. Occasionally you might, if you had the right magazine, like, well, for me it was Fangoria, you might hear about an upcoming film, but typically you heard about a film when it released or was about to release. So it's been a long time since a movie had come out that I did not know was in production. So that was very cool. I bought it on disc a little while back. I watched it this week. It is terrible. And that bummed me right the hell out. And I decided to watch it at like midnight 30. So it was like 2 in the morning. I was like, I can't go to bed now. I have to watch another movie and hope it's better. I can't go to bed on this much disappointment. And the movie is low budget to the point where it feels like no one cared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty much a single location movie, which I can excuse. But the very first kill is a decapitation. I was like, oh no, because it looks so terrible. I mean, it looks like you and I making a movie in your backyard. I don't have a backyard, but I bet you do. Do you have a backyard?
Yeah.
We could make a horror movie in your backyard then. And it looked terrible. And the whole movie felt like it was made by people who had a certain amount of disdain for the Hatchet movies. Like they had no respect, like they didn't like them, and they're like,
interesting,
just peeing all over them. I've watched some behind the scenes stuff, and that doesn't seem to be the case. But I'm like, damn, man, what happened? Why does this suck so bad? There's some great ideas in it, and some of the character stuff works, but overall, it's just bad. And it's got 2 commentaries, and the disc is still sitting here, and I haven't listened to them because I don't want to watch the movie again because it's bad.
Wow.
So I just wanted to share my pain with everyone. I ended up watching a movie called Hardcore Henry. It's that movie that's shot entirely in the first person.
Yeah.
More of an interesting technical exercise for filmmaking than actually a good movie, but it was much better than Hatchet 4, so I went to bed not terribly annoyed. So there's that.
Okay.
That's all I have to say about that. So
just a movie experience I've had recently. So one of the films that I remember watching as a kid was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes, That's
I remember,
barely a horror film, but sure.
and I remember for the longest time I remembered specific scenes and everything. And the general plot of the film, but I was pretty young when I watched it, and so I was just I was I wouldn't say obsessed with it, but I just always considered it a film that had a lasting impression on me.
Hmm.
The only other film that I really claim that kind of impact is Gremlins, that same kind of impact on me. But then you know, sometime 15 years ago or whatever, I was at Walmart and in their $5 movie bin. This was back when things were still on VHS. I found a copy of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and I thought, yes. So I bought it because I'm just like,
Oh.
yes, I finally get to watch it. And it was the and it was the director's cut,
Hmm.
and I enjoyed it. I seriously, I still love the movie, and so that was the copy of the film that I had for forever. And then a couple weeks ago, we found Attack of the Killer Tomatoes on our Roku. I forget which app it was. Might have been the Amazon app, but Amazon Prime or something. But we watched it, and the one that was on that streaming was not the director's cut, and it was it wasn't, it was the pretty much the same thing, but it was just uh, different enough that I was just like, huh, why did they make this choice and not go with what's in the director's cut? Because the director's cut has some really weird non sequiturs and other stuff. Like um, at one point, a scene just goes to some obscure African language or Asian language or something like that, and with English subtitles, and some the camera operator pops up and he's like, we couldn't find this scene in English, so we're using this other version of the film to patch in this scene. And that was not in there. And there was in the version we watched on streaming, they had a musical number, actually two musical numbers that weren't in the director's cut, and one of them was really annoying. I didn't like it, but the other one I thought was actually pretty entertaining, and I was really surprised they cut it in the director's cut version. But yeah, it was just very interesting to go from just little blips of memory of the film to watching the director's cut and making that like the definitive version for me, and then going back to the original cut and just seeing and just looking at that. And I found the director's cut to be much more farcical and comedic and entertaining than the original cut was. So um, yeah. um, but I also did, a while back, I also watched the sequels to it as well, and those were not as good at all. But yeah, just my little film experience recently.
Hmm.
Uh,
So it's 8 o'clock. You want to talk about the stuff that you forwarded to me?
um, yeah, well, let's talk about the
Get some substance in this podcast before we go.
let's talk about the video game streaming thing, because
All right.
that's something I wanted to write an article up about this week, and I never got around to it. And um, but what's been going on recently is that the idea of video game streaming is coming back into the the general mindset, or the frame of mind of people. And I don't know why this is, because just about every video game streaming service that has popped up over the last 5 years has finally shut down. I guess it's really just kind of Microsoft and Sony that are keeping the dream alive. but uh, but in this, so this has been back in the discussion, and one of the things that has come around is that people are talking about how the idea of video game streaming is going to be a losing proposition for game developers. Um, uh, One article I read is at gamesindustry.biz. This one's written by Brendan Sinclair, and it's titled Netflix of Games, a Threat to Developers. It says if subscription streaming services take off, creators likely to lose leverage in dealing with platform holders. And there's not a whole lot of substance in here, but the idea where Brendan comes to the conclusion that this is going to be bad for gamers or for game developers, is because of news that music artists make squat off of streaming services like Spotify and Pandora.
Mm.
Peter Frampton tweeted earlier this month. He said, for 55 million streams of "Baby I Love Your Way," I got $1,700. I went to Washington with ASCAP last year to talk to lawmakers about this. Their jaws dropped, and they asked me to repeat that for them. And so basically there's a report. He says there's a report from City GPS. I'm not exactly sure what that service is, but they determined that of the U.S. music industry's $43 billion in revenue, artists only pocket 12%, and with the rest of the money going to various middlemen between themselves and the audience. And so what they're saying here is that because Spotify makes billions of dollars or whatever. I don't even know how much money they make. I don't even think they're actually making a profit right now. That because artists are only making 12% off of all this money, and that's split between all artists that have their music on these services, that video game developers are going to get screwed in the same way. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why in the world would the video game industry go from what it is now to copying the music industry's model? Because what is happening now is that Spotify takes 70% of what they earn and send that off to the music industry. They send it off to the license holders. And it's their job to distribute it. So basically, what the complaint should be is that music labels are
paying the artists like they should.
Not paying. The story should be that labels are not paying the artists like they should be. Labels are pocketing. Let's see, what's 70 minus 12?
58.
58, yeah. Sorry, my brain is
all right. It's late.
It's 58. Labels are pocketing 58% of all music revenue in the country, is what the complaint should be. And so the video game industry is looking at this and they're like, oh no, this is scary. And I'm just like, no. All we have to do to avoid this is to not be the music industry. Strike up direct deals with streaming services instead of striking up a deal with Sony and having them deal with the thing. Don't, or a publisher or whoever. Don't go through a publisher to get to streaming. Just go straight to the streaming service. One of the things I can think of is Happy Madison Productions, the Adam Sandler production house.
Mm-hmm.
They have a direct deal with Netflix to produce films, or at least they did at some point.
Yeah, 6 of them, I think.
Yeah, and it's just they did a direct deal with Netflix. That means that all the money Netflix makes off of those films, minus whatever Netflix's cut is, goes back to Happy Madison. It doesn't go to Warner Brothers and then to Happy Madison. No, it goes directly from Netflix to Happy Madison. The same thing can happen for video game developers. They just need to not work with middlemen. Just go directly to the streaming services, because I know most of them are going to be pretty open. At least they have been so far, and I don't see any reason why they would require you to go through a middleman to work with them.
Well, could you consider the publishers themselves the middlemen to the developers?
Um, I could, yeah, the publishers, the publishing side of things is very much the same sort of thing as a middleman, like a label, but we're still slightly different. Where um, a label may give an artist an advance on their record that they produce, and then pay them royalties later, but a video game publisher pays for the full production of the game, and then depending on the contract, pays royalties or not. I've read so it's a similar thing, but unless those developers are owned by the publisher, they can just skip the publisher and go straight to the streaming service and make their deal there. So yeah.
Hmm.
So I just don't see why we should be concerned about how much the music industry is making, and pretending like that's exactly how it's going to work out for game.
My gut tells me that we're not going to see a Netflix for games, at least until we see mini Netflixes per publisher. Like, I think we'll see a Nintendo streaming service where you have access to a particular company's backlog. Probably not the new games. Anything older than 10 years, you subscribe as a monthly service and you can play any of their older titles. And I think that's going to be the Nintendo streaming service, the Activision streaming service, the EA streaming service. I don't think we're going to, at least for a while, get a Netflix for games where there's just a wide variety of publishers all on the same streaming service. I don't see that happening, at least not in the near future.
Yeah, I that is probably going to be one of the big holdouts, is like, who is going to run the streaming service. And right now, yeah, like you said, it's right now it's very piecemeal. It's very this
Well, at
public.
the very least, it's probably only going to be the big ones. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, EA, Activision, maybe Ubisoft.
Microsoft doing it. But yeah, I think if we really want to look at potential revenue streams for streaming, I think it would probably be better to base the potential for revenue and everything off of current subscription services, like the Humble Monthly subscription, the PSN Now or whatever it is, and Microsoft's Xbox Gold, where you get X number of games each month as long as you're a subscriber. I think that is probably going to be a better look at how revenue is going, how much money you're going to make, because with the Humble Bundle, I think it's what, $12 a month or something like that. Something like that, and you get however many games you get each month, and that money is split between Humble Bundle and the developers, and the same thing with the actual bundles. And so I think if we looked at those models, we could get a better idea of how revenue sharing is going to happen. But
another thing I wanted to bring up is, and something that Chaos addresses in the comments, is something that I'm actually seeing with the video streaming services today. People like Netflix, but now you have CBS, or whoever is streaming the Star Trek thing. You have Warner Brothers having their own streaming service where you can, for some reason, watch the Titans, and Disney apparently is going to have their own streaming service where you can watch the Marvel movies and stuff like that. And I'm seeing a lot of pushback from people who are like, look, I don't want to subscribe to 18 different streaming services. Just one. I just want to watch my stuff on Netflix. I don't. at some point we're going to have a streaming service for streaming services.
Yeah.
Something that aggregates all of your streaming services into one service, so you don't have to flip back and forth between
Yeah, because
several different
it started
services.
out with Netflix and Hulu, and Hulu was the major networks
Mm-hmm.
basically
TV
saying
stuff.
we don't want to deal with Netflix. We want something for us where we can control everything. And then CBS was just like, well, we don't want anything to do with you guys. We're going to do our own thing. And then Warner and Disney and Sony and everybody is just all deciding, oh, we want to do it ourselves and we want to have our own content in this and I think we're going to hit a crash at some point where there's going to be so many streaming services for television that a large number of them are going to shut down overnight, and everybody's just going to go back to Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime probably. Those are the three that are actually going to survive the longest. I would actually think Hulu might actually shut down before or at some point as well, because they're is it Time Warner that owns? No, it's not Time Warner. I don't know. Whoever owns Hulu is just totally screwing it up.
Yeah. Hey, subscription service where you still have to watch ads. What?
Yep.
What? No.
Exactly.
Then why would I pay for? Why? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are definitely concerns for video game streaming, for developers and for game
quite there yet,
yeah.
too. But
well, yeah, and most of that is down to the broadband issue. I don't think the hardware is going to be an issue. It's just the matter of actually being able to stream HD video games.
Yeah,
with zero latency, and so I don't think
not for a while, because there's just too many places in this country, and forgive me for being North America centric, but there's just too many places in this country that don't have decent broadband.
Yep.
So I mean, even when I'm
in a fairly large city and I barely have decent broadband. So if gaming goes all streaming or all digital sales, I'm out. Yeah, Addicted to Chaos. Yeah, I'm probably there with you. I'll just stick with the hundreds of games I own from previous systems and be content, because I still have a backlog of over 150 games or so that I haven't gotten around to playing.
Yeah, Freakill says, I'm not sure it'd be so easy for older games. I've seen stories where old games are impossible to publish now, since over the years the rights got spread across various companies. That's true. That's why I was talking about streaming services from individual publishers who only deal with their own back catalogs.
Yeah.
Although even in some of those cases, the rights can get spread all over the place. For instance, like if they published a game that had a movie license, or if they licensed music for the game.
Like GoldenEye is a prime example where Rare doesn't have the IP rights anymore, and Nintendo doesn't have the IP rights, so they can't re-release GoldenEye. But yeah, and honestly, that is a major problem with copyright laws that exist today. It is totally out of scope with video games, with the video game industry, where copyright was originally for 14 years with the option to renew it for another 14 years. Now it's life of the author plus 70 years or 95 years for a company. That's just ridiculous. What are they gonna do with these games from the 80s that nobody knows who the copyright holder is? It's
I'm sure
insane.
As soon as you publish it, you'll find out who it is. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
Leaf says if I had all the games I've owned over my life, I'd probably have a collection of about 150. Not big into digital, huh? Because my Steam account alone is more than 150, and most of those I got for free. I'm constantly adding crap to my Steam account
Oh yeah,
because
I
I
see.
constantly see free game. I'm like, okay, I have no interest in this game. I'm not even reading what it is, but it's free. I'm adding it.
Yeah. Well, I just got Orwell yesterday on Steam, and I played it a little bit today, and
Did I get that? Is that the Yeah,
uh,
Orwell. I have no idea what that is, but I got it because it was free.
yeah, I got a free game on GOG earlier this week, and I think Humble had a free game as well. And yeah, it's just, every time I see if those three services, anytime I see a free game on one of those, I go out and get it. Oh yeah, Orwell was through Humble, so yeah. But yeah, I'm always adding free games to my Steam, and then I've got a library of games for the PS2, PS1. Yeah, I don't currently own every game that I've ever owned in my life. Which is kind of sad because I used to own some great games and I sold them for money. And yeah, I wish I still owned everything that I ever actually owned because I would have a massive game library. Not like a
Yeah.
complete game library for all systems, but
No,
I would
no.
have things back to the Atari 2600 and the TI 99 and but,
Yeah, as you can see behind me, I'm a physical media kind of guy. These are all movies, but my games are over there. If you, I guess if you counted up all I know the movies is something like 11 or 1200 because I actually have a catalog of them. The games I don't. I should probably do that. I would imagine it's a couple of hundred physical games that I have
yeah,
from Atari all the way up to now. Um,
yeah, it would be
so
good to catalog all those for insurance purposes at least.
yeah, I mean it's one of the reasons I have a catalog of my movies. I have a program. I forget what the hell it's called, DVD profiler or something like that. That's just cat. You type in the uh, UPC of the product, and it just adds it to a list, and you can archive that somewhere. So if my house ever burns down, I have a list of all the movies I had. I should probably do the same thing for game. Actually, I should probably try typing in the game UPCs into that thing. I wouldn't be surprised if it recognized the barcodes for games too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, all my stuff's in pretty good condition. I keep all my stuff in the box. If you go into my bedroom, which you shouldn't, and you open up one of my dresser drawers, which you definitely shouldn't, you'll find my Super NES and Nintendo 64 games, the stuff that's in cardboard boxes instead of plastic DVD case type things. um, I have a couple of loose games, but most of the loose games, for example, one's Super Mario Worlds because it's how it came with the Super NES. It didn't come in its own box. And a couple other games I just were unloaded on me by people. Hey, you want some of my games? I'm like, yeah, sure, give me your games. And they didn't have the boxes, so I think I have like Mario Paint or something not in a spot. I don't know. I've got like 4 SNES games that don't have their
yeah.
box.
I've got Mario Paint. I'm not a complete in box kind of guy. Anything on a disc, I want the box just because I don't want to deal with loose CDs and DVDs lying
Mhm.
around. But old cartridge games, I'm not a complete in box kind of guy. I do like getting the manuals when they're available, but I don't worry about them. Um, but I've got Mario Paint, and I really wish I had that mouse pad. That mouse pad was nice. Yeah,
Wasn't it hard plastic?
it was just a hard plastic mouse
Yeah.
pad. It was designed so that you could just set it on the floor and use the mouse at the same time.
Right. Because you had to plug it into the console, which was plugged into your TV. So for a lot of
Yeah,
us in the early '90s, it was sitting on the carpet in front of the entertainment unit, and so you'd be sitting on the carpet in front of the thing, in front
Yeah.
of your Super NES, and so you try using a mouse on carpet, whether it's optical or a wheel,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work. So you had this hard piece of plastic that you moved the mouse on,
Yeah.
and
But it was
that was a rollerball mouse, right?
yeah,
The
rollerball.
underside was a ball,
Yeah,
right?
it
Yeah.
was the old school rollerball one. Two button mouse actually, so that was
Hmm.
nice. But the only game that I really want to do a complete inbox for is RoboCop versus Terminator on the Super NES.
That game is hard.
Oh, I loved it. I actually
That's a
beat
good game. It's just hard.
it. It is. But the
Or a
game
second when I played it.
had um, a plastic cover that went over the actual cardboard box, and it had the big logo in it and everything, and it was like a rocky texture or brick texture or something like that. And it was really nice. I used to have that, and you know back in the day when I sold my Super NES stuff, I got rid of that too, and I'm just like, man. But if I could find a complete box RoboCop versus Terminator with that plastic cover, I would be totally happy. I
Hmm.
wouldn't need any other complete box anything ever again.
Well, if anyone's looking for Christmas ideas for Zachary, there you go.
No, uh, yeah, the RoboCop games are actually some of my favorites. The RoboCop first one for Super NES or for the Nintendo, that one's a lot of fun. That one's hard too. Um, because you not only have health, but you have a timer that you have like a minute and a half to beat each level, and once you get to the end, you're like beating the level with like 3 seconds left, and that's like the best time you could do. Oh, so great.
Yeah. All right, well, let's call it a night. That's an hour and a half. So we'll plug our stuff and skedaddle. I got to eat dinner, and you probably have to go to bed.
Yeah,
Zachary's 2 hours ahead of me, I think, right?
yeah.
You're Central?
Area Central.
Yeah. All right, so Andrew Eisen here. Eisen is how you spell the last name. Plug it into YouTube. Fund my YouTube videos. Have I done anything recently? Um, I did a video last week called "The Ugliest Cat I Have Ever Seen." So go watch that. It's
I watched that.
it's mildly amusing, and believe it or not, it's a completely true story. I'm not kidding. That is a totally true story. Um, yes, I'm that gullible or blind or something. I don't know what's wrong with me. Um, actually, the only thing that's not well, I won't spoil the joke for the 5 people who want to go watch it. So go watch it. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen, and yeah, that's about it. I'm still doing the Extra Life thing. That's not till November 3rd, so plenty of time. But if you want to get a donation in, extralife.org, search my name, you'll find my page. Go ahead and make a donation. Money goes to Rady Children's, so there you go. Zachary, plug away.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Easy Night, where I talk about gaming and politics and other things. You can follow my game development work at divinenightgaming.com and DK_gaming on Twitter. And if you're interested in the Oklahoma game development scene, check out okgamedev.com and okgamedevs on Twitter. There you go.
All right. You've been listening to Molehill Mountain, episode 110, and we thank you for that. So we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.